Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. What's up, man? I'm going live right now. I can't talk.
Shalom Aleichem. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm going live right now. I can't talk.
Okay. Excellent.
All right. Hello, hello, hello. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing in these very strange times of ours, in these corona times? All right. So, very exciting Parsha today. Today, we have Parshas Emor. Man, where to start? Where to start on Emor? I think I'm going to start by sharing my screen with you because for those people who are able to actually see it, that might be very, very helpful. 1 second. Just a moment. I'm not so good with this technology stuff. Now I can't seem to find my Zoom. Okay, I don't think that's going to work, so we're just going to have to do without the benefit of that. If you look at Parshas Emor, I think that the structure of it is very, very strange. We ended off, as we often do, we like to look back at just like what were the last few things that it said in the end of the previous parsha. As we know, the parshas, of course, they flow, right? The parshas flow. Well, the parshas flow, then you would expect that the very, very end of last week's parsha should have a lot to do with the beginning of this week's parsha. And it just so happens that the end of last week's parsha is not just strange. It's, oh my God, it's probably the second most anticlimactic parsha ending that I can think of, and we're going to acquaint ourselves with the one that perhaps is even more very soon. And ends like this. So last week, of course, was the end of Parshas Kedoshim, and Kedoshim is talking all about well, it means holiness. So we all know what it's going to be talking about. It's obviously going to be relating itself to topics of holiness. How would you expect the very end of Parshas Kedoshim to go? Well, it turns out that it's intuitive. It ends intuitively. It says, Hashem finishes off, he recaps this entire discussion by saying, listen, you should guard my commandments, guard my statutes, do them. Don't let the land kick you out, that I'm going to keep you there. I'm going to bring you to the land. I'm going to do these great miracles for you. And if you do horrible things and you're not holy, the land's going to throw you up, literally throw you up. It's going to expectorate you. Taki means to vomit. The land will vomit. And don't act like the other nations that I'm kicking out from before you. Don't be like that. You must make a difference. You must make a havdalah between the animals that are tahor and the animals that are tameh, and between the flying creatures that are tameh and tahor. Don't make yourselves disgusting with animals or with flying creatures or all things that crawl on the ground. And you will be holy to me because I am holy. And I have separated you from all the nations for you to be to me. And therefore, the same way that I've separated you, you should separate yourself from behema. You should separate bimavdil between behema tahora labena behema she'inena tahora, and you should separate between certain actions. Now, that sounds like a perfect way to end a portion called "Be Holy." That perfect sense. The problem is that's actually not the end of the parsha. I lied. It's not the end of the parsha. There's one more sentence. Can I finish it for you? Here's the sentence. V'isho isha ki yebahem ovo yidoni. And by the way, any man or any woman that does necromancy, who communes with the dead, kill him. That's actually the end of the parsha. Huh? Why would the end of Parshas Kedoshim? I mean, could you think of a better conclusionary statement where Hashem takes all of the things that we've been talking about for the last 4 parshios and puts them all together, wraps them up with a nice ribbon and a nice bow, gives it a kiss, and then all of a sudden says, oh my gosh, I totally forgot to tell you, a man or a woman who does over Yidoni and does necromancy to communicate with the dead, you have to kill them. First of all, God, why did you forget to tell me about this? And oh, you didn't forget to tell me about this. Actually, you told me about this in Parshas Achremos. Huh? You're telling me not only is it a horrific anticlimax on the end of Parshas Kedoshim, but it's much worse. You've already told me that a Baal Oven Yidoni will die. So Rashi explains, Baruch Hashem for Rashi. So Rashi says, yeah, because that's Kores. This is Misas Bezdin. HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Parshas Achremos told us that if somebody does necromancy, Hashem will kill them and give them Kores. But how do you know that the court's supposed to throw them off a cliff? I have to tell you that also, so I'll tell you that now. Rashi, that's wonderful. But you answered the question that nobody was asking. We want to know what the heck it's doing here at the end of Parshas Kedoshim. And you're like, oh, well, it had to be separated to tell you that you die. Why couldn't Hashem tell you in Achremos when he told you the first time not to do the necromancy that, by the way, I, God, will kill you and the Bezdin will kill you? That's what he should have done. Very strange. Very strange. And that's the end of Parshas Kedoshim, which launches us into Emor. And the beginning of Emor talks about Misa, Tumas Meis, which I guess makes a lot of sense because the end of Kedoshim, after all, was talking about communicating with the dead. So maybe it ended off with Baal Oven Yidoni, which is communicating with the dead, and now HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, tell the Kohanim, that they're not allowed to be in contact with the dead, other than, of course, their 7 immediate relatives: mother, father, sister, brother, husband, mother, father, sister, brother, son, daughter, spouse, wife. And it's only unmarried sister. Those are the 7 immediate relatives. So a Kohen is only allowed to be in contact with those people if they die. Very nice. That's good. And the Kohen should get the first aliyah, and a Kohen should never be mechalel. He should never profane his kahuna status. Now, a Kohen can't actually profane his own kahuna status. What he can do is he can create a child who is profaned, so to speak. The word, I don't like the word in English because it does. The word is halal. The word is halal, which means mundane. A Kohen who is kadosh. What is the opposite of holy? The opposite of holy is not profane, it's mundane. So you have Shabbos, for example, is a day of holiness, Yom Kiddusha, and then you have Yomot HaChol, the days of mundane. It's not that your Tuesday is profane, it's merely mundane. Hopefully you don't have any profane Tuesdays, but I wish you many, many, many wonderful, wonderful, extraordinary, mundane, unholy Tuesdays. Hopefully we'll all have millions and millions of those. Well, so a Kohen is Kadosh, and if he has an inappropriate relationship, if he marries a woman that he's not allowed to marry, let's say she's a divorcee. A Kohen is not allowed to marry a divorcee. There's nothing wrong with the Yisrael marrying a divorcee. That's totally fine. A Kohen cannot. If a Kohen marries a divorcee, the child, the result of that relationship is a halal. That child born to the Kohen will not actually be a Kohen. He will be a halal. Okay, so since a Kohen's extra holy, that means that he has to be extra careful. I'm good with that. And if his daughter should, God forbid, whore herself out, that is a horrible thing, because then not only is she committing a terrible atrocity by acting in a way that no Jewish woman should act, but even more than that, she's the daughter of a Kohen, so it's extra bad. It's an extra chilul, it's an extra profanity, and therefore we're going to burn her to death, not at the stake. That's what they do in Massachusetts, not in Jerusalem. Then we talk about the fact that you're not allowed to bring a blemish to the altar. That makes sense, right? Because after all, if you're going, and we'll see how much time we have today. If we have a lot of time, we'll go into this much, much, much deeper, because it's scary when we realize just how far we are from the mark. But on the surface of it, you're not going to bring a bull on the altar for God for a korban, for a sacrifice that's missing a leg. Like, you're not going to do that. I understand why you might want to have like a rescue dog or a rescue bull, but you're not going to offer as a sacrifice to Hashem an animal that has a blemish. Okay, I understand. And also a Kohen that has a blemish also cannot come to do the avoda. Even though it doesn't seem so fair, because God, this person was born with a hair lip. The guy's born with a hair lip. He's born with a hair lip, so you're not going to let him serve God. But yes, that's the truth. God will not let him serve if he has a hair lip for some reason. Maybe we'll come back to that as well. We'll see. Then we decided that now is a good time to tell you that when an animal is born, for 7 days, you can't kill it. You have to leave it with its mom, and then on the 8th day, you can kill it. Okay. Thanks for telling me that. When would the appropriate time to have told me that have been? How about in the beginning of Parshas Vayikra or Tzav, when you told me about the offerings? When you tell me about the offerings, what kind of animal it has to be, you should tell me, by the way, the animal that you're going to bring as an offering, whether it's an ola or a shlamim or a chatas or an asham, whatever the animal happens to be, it has to be 8 days old. Could have told me that then. It's a little strange to tell me now. Okay. And then now is also a good time to tell you immediately after that if you eat your sacrifice, you have a certain time to eat it. And then if you don't eat the rest of it, you have to burn it. You have to burn the leftovers. And if you leave the leftovers in a Tupperware in the refrigerator, then we have to kill you. God kills you for leaving over the Tupperware, the leftovers of the korban. It's pretty draconian, but okay. V'lo sechalelu es shem kadshi. Do not profane my holy name, God says. V'niktashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael. I will be sanctified among the Jews. Ani Adonai mikadeshchem. I am Hashem who makes you holy. Because apparently, if you eat from the leftovers of a korban 2 hours after it was due to burn, that is the paradigmatic example of Chilul Hashem. It's not like a Rosh Hashiva who is embezzling money from the government and raping his students. Like that's not the best example of a Chilul Hashem. I think the best example of a Chilul Hashem is a guy who microwaves the leftover chicken breast. That wouldn't be anyway. Let's just say the leftover short ribs on Tuesday when it was supposed to be done Monday night. He's the example of a Chilul Hashem. That's the example of Chilul Hashem. Wow. I mean, apparently the Torah is not all that imaginative, because I could think of just much more heinous crimes. At least seemingly to me, they seem more heinous. Not to mention the fact that when do you think the most appropriate time to tell me the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem? Because this is literally where it is. The mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem is right here. It's right here in Parshas Emor. V'niktashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael. You know where it's not? It's not in Parshas Kedoshim, which is exactly where ostensibly it should have been. No. I mean, the Parsha is called Kedoshim. It's all the holy, and it says Kedoshim Tihiyu. The Parsha of Kedoshim begins. Speak to the Jewish people and say to them, Kedoshim Tihiyu ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem. You be holy because I'm holy. I mean, right? Doesn't this belong there? It's exactly where this belongs. Okay. Well, now that God has remembered that not merely do the Jews have to be holy, but also they have to make Hashem's name holy. Now that I've told you that, let me tell you about the holidays. Because holidays is related to holy days. So now would be a good time to tell you about the holidays for some reason. Here are the Moadei Hashem. And we begin famously with Shabbos. We begin with Shabbos, which everybody knows is not really a holiday. I mean, come on. Shabbos is not a holiday. But okay, for some bizarre reason, we're going to call it a Moed. And listen to this. The text is hilarious. It's mamash here. I want to read the text to you. Daber b'nei Yisrael v'yamartu alehem. Speak to the Jews and tell them, Moadei Adonai asher tikru osam mikrai kodesh, eila hein moadai. The holidays of God, that you will call them holy, these are my holy times. Sheish yamim te'aseh melacha. For 6 days you will do work, and on the 7th day will be a Shabbos. Don't do any work. It's Shabbos. These are the holidays of Hashem. They're called Kodesh. That you call them in their times. Pesach, Omer, Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. But you understand what didn't make sense, right? The second verse, the second sentence, Pasuk Beis, was Daber b'nei Yisrael v'yamartu alehem. Speak to the Jews and say, Moadei Hashem asher tikru osam mikrai kodesh eila hein moadai. The holidays of Hashem that you're going to call them holy, these are my holidays. And it begins with Shabbos. And it gives you one sentence on Shabbos. And then the very next sentence, Eila Moadei Hashem mikrai kodesh. These are the holidays of Hashem. You already introduced it in Pasuk 2. How many times are you going to introduce Moadei Hashem to me? So weird. Zohar, it gets so much worse. Oh, it gets so much worse. Because there are 2 sukkahs. We're not even going to go into that because there's just too much. It's too much. Do you know what it says after the Moadim? Immediately after the Moadim? Again, just to recap very quickly, you've got Tumas Mace of who a Kohen can and can't go can't go close to. You have the issue of chilul, of Kohanes not serving with the mum, or having children out of allowable and legal relationships. You have bringing the wrong type of thing as a korban because it's too old, or you ate it after the time, and you have holidays. Okay, cool. And now is where the parsha really goes crazy. Now is when it really goes crazy. You know, it comes right after the Parshas Moedim. Immediately after it tells you about the holidays. By Daber Adonai Moshe Emor. You're not going to believe me. Tzaves b'nei Yisrael v'yikhu elecha shemen zay yizoch kosis lamaor lahalos ner tamid. Command the Jews and take olive oil, pure olive oil, for the menorah. Michutz leparoches ha'idus ba'ol moed, outside of the curtain of presence in the tent of meeting, Aaron will set it up. Ala menorah tehorah, right on the holy menorah. I need to tell you to take olive oil for the menorah so that Aaron can light it. I need to tell you that. Why do I need to tell you that, you ask? Simple, because otherwise you wouldn't know that. It's not like the pasuk already commanded you. It's not like the pasuk already commanded you to take shemen zay yizach kasis lamaor la'alos ner tamid. It's not like in Exodus. You're in the wrong book. You're almost done with Leviticus, right? Vayikra tzav shmini tazriya mitzorah achrei kadoshim Emor. You're 8 sidras into the 3rd book of the Torah, and at the very end of the eighth section of the 3rd book, the Torah tells you something that you've known since midway through the 2nd book. Because when this whole entire temple thing got launched in Parshas Truma, Hashem says to Moshe, and again, this is in Parshas Truma, so Shmos va'ira bo b'shalach yisur mishpatim Truma. Hashem says to Moshe, tell the Jews, b'chuli Truma, they'll take Truma for me. B'zos ha-Truma shetichu be'itam, this is the Truma that you're going to take. Zahav v'chesef v'nechoshes u'tchelos v'argamon t'lashani v'sheish v'izim v'ros elim adam v'ros t'chashim v'atzei shitim v'shemen lama or. You're going to take olive oil for the lamp. I know that. And in fact, right after the Torah gives you the list of ingredients that you need to get from the people, it talks first about the ark, second about the shulchan, the table, and third about the menorah, and it says it right there. And then you know what else it does? It says again in the next parsha, Parshas Tetzaveh. Because Parshas Tetzaveh, which is the eighth section of the 2nd book, says Va'atot tetzaves b'nei Yisrael v'yichu elecha shemen zay zoch kasis lamor la'alos ner tamid. It's almost word for word what it says here. It's like, oh my God, why are you telling me this again? It's so random. It's so bad. I'm not going to diss people who are a bajillion times greater than I'll ever be, but I will tell you that some people go so far as to say that the reason that it tells you now is because now, chronologically, the Jews ran out of oil. So they needed more. So Hashem told Moshe, go do another drive and get more. I don't understand what he means by that. I really don't. I don't want to even talk about it because I don't understand it. But luckily, after the Torah finishes talking about the menorah, it gets better. Now we can get back to our discussion. Now we can talk about holiness again and Tumantara again, right? Wrong. Here's the next pasuk. And by the way, you also have to have the showbread. What? You're going to take flour and you're going to make it into 12 challahs? Are you kidding me? Now that you've repeated the whole menorah thing, you're going to continue the horror show by also repeating the table thing? It's brutal. Okay, but now we're done with the showbread. Thank God. Finally, we can go back to the holidays. We can go back to holiness. No. Now we're going to tell you something. By Yitzei ben Isha Yisraelis, there was a guy who had a dispute with his stepfather, and he cursed God. He's the Mekala. Parshas Emor ends with the Mekala, with the cursor, and you kill him. I don't know. I don't even know where to start chewing on that parsha. Emor's brutal. Okay. I would like to tell you a little bit of what I think is going on here, because we're not going to have time to get to everything. The first things first. We said, why would you tell Why would you tell us the laws of Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem after Parshas Kedoshim? That doesn't make any sense. It belongs in Parshas Kedoshim, not after Parshas Kedoshim. Well, you see that the Torah has been going on a trajectory. The Torah has been moving us on a steady climb towards the apex of holiness since the beginning of Sefer Vayikra. Literally since the beginning of Sefer Vayikra. Let's do a very quick recap. Now that the Beis HaMikdash has been activated, now that it works, immediately the Torah starts telling you the second the battery hits, the second the connection goes and the electricity turns on literally and figuratively, killing another of you, we go on a tangent of Kedusha and Tahara. And we tell you about the holiness and the status of first animals and then humans, which is Shmini and then Tazria and Metzora. Then we tell you about Tuma and Tara, holiness, but not of status, but rather of actions. The status of holiness and of purity of actions. That's in Achremos and Kedoshim. Do you know what happens in Emor? So beautiful. Now that we've told the Jewish people, the Jewish collective, how to be holy as a people, as a nation, guess what? There is another drawing forth of holiness that we're going to describe. A holiness that is even more fine, that is even more precise than the holiness of the Yisrael, of the Jew. What holiness can I possibly talk? What am I talking about? It's holier than a Jew? Yes, it's called a Kohen. It's called a Kohen. The Parsha of the holiness of a Kohen does not belong in the Parsha of the holiness of Yisrael, because the Kohen doesn't have the same Kedusha as the Yisrael. He's something else. He is spliced off. He's in a section with the holiness of something that's even more holy than that, isn't it? I think you've already guessed. The Parsha of Emor begins. The Parsha of Emor begins. Now that we have finished off telling you about the holiness of Am Yisrael, now I'm going to tell you about the Kedusha of a Kohen. It's not talking about death, and that's why it's talking about Tumas Mace. And then all of a sudden it's talking about harlotry. No, the issue isn't death, and the issue isn't harlotry, and the issue isn't marriage, and the issue isn't food, and the issue isn't blemish. The issue is holiness. Holiness. And the issue specifically is the holiness of Kohen. So it happens to be that the holiness of the Kohen manifests in when he can be metame to a mace, when he can come in contact with death, who he can marry and who he cannot. What happens if he marries someone that he's not allowed to, and the results of that relationship, and how his daughter, how he is dealt with differently and how his daughter is dealt with differently, and what he can eat and what others can't. And then after it tells you about the holiness of the Kohen, then it tells you about the logical next step. What's the logical next step to tell you after I've told you about the holiness of the Kohen? Simple. The holiness of the Kohen Gadol. Right? Because we're going in order, baby. So now I'm going to tell you about the holiness of the Kohen Gadol. He has to marry. Not only can he not marry Isha Zona v'chalala, he can't marry a divorcee, and he cannot marry someone who was a harlot. Even more, he has to marry a virgin. A regular Kohen doesn't have to marry a virgin. A Kohen Gadol cannot even marry a widow. A regular Kohen can marry a widow. That's not a problem. That's no problem. A Kohen Gadol cannot. So that's an even higher level of Kedusha. And in fact, again, just following the pattern, the Kohen Gadol also can't be metame, cannot come in contact with even his dead family. The only exception of when a Kohen Gadol can come in contact with death is a mace mitzvah. A mace mitzvah is when he comes across a dead body and there's no one to bury it. So then he would do the burial. And I don't want you to think that this is an issue of kavod or brios. I don't think that a mace mitzvah is an issue of, oh, well, there's no one else to do it, so then the high priest will do it. That's not the issue. But we'll come back to that. Maybe we will. We'll see. Maybe we'll talk about that by Nazir. After it talks about the Kedusha of the Kohen Gadol, and as we've said, that's why it's cordoned off and split off of the Kedusha of the rest of the Jews, then we talk about a different kind of Kedusha. We talk about Kedusha of time. Kedushas Hazman, the Kedusha of time. Now, what does the Kedusha of time look like? The Kedusha of time, oh my gosh, listen to how crazy this is. Listen to how perfectly the Torah classifies everything. Kedusha of time has different layers to it. One layer is that if you kill a korban, if you, the Kohen, do the action of sacrificing this animal, but in your mind, you had in mind that it should be eaten until Tuesday, and really it's only eaten until Monday, that's people. That Kohen is a dead man. Why? Because you have just been mechalel the carbon of God. You have just taken the action of a carbon of Hashem, of a sacrifice that's about to be put on an altar. And the reality of this carbon is that it's supposed to be a two-day lamb. You thought about it as a 3-day lamb, and then you put it on the barbecue. You have now put a chilul on God's barbecue. Now, what did we say happens to the daughter of a Kohen who goes out and becomes a harlot? That's an even greater denigration and degradation than if a regular person would do that, than if a regular Jewess would do that. Because as we've said, the Kohen is totally different. Well, similarly, just like the Kohen is different, how careful does the Kohen have to be about his food, his truma, which literally means to raise? How careful does the Kohen have to be with the barbecue of God, also known as the Mizbeach HaChitzon? The answer is very. And if he has the wrong thought, death, pigul. Well, let's think about the three things that come together. We said, Osov Espino. There's an animal has to wait 7 days before you can kill it, and on the eighth day you can kill it. Number one. What's that an issue of? Time. You can't kill it within this time. You have to kill it after that time. Next. Osov Espino lo sishchutu b'yom echad. You can't kill an animal and its parent on the same day. What's that a problem with? Time. Then there's nosar. If you barbecue, what happens if you barbecue? If you microwave the leftover steak the next day? Nosar. Death. Again, what's that an issue of? Time. We're talking about kedusha in zman. So since we've been talking about this steady, upward, finer and finer and higher trajectory of holiness, after we talk about the holiness of earth, because remember, everything is so evolutionary, baby. It's so evolutionary. I'll show you in this parsha how we get evolutionary. First, we talk about the kedusha of the earth and a place, which is the mikdash. Then we talk about animals and their kedusha and their tara status. Then we talk about humans and their kedusha and their tara status. Then we talk about human actions, their kedusha and their tara status. Then we talk about kohen kedusha and tara status. Then we talk about kohen gadol kedusha and tara status. And then we talk about time kedusha. And then what do we talk about? The only thing that's left. The mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. The mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem and the mitzvah of Chilul Hashem, God forbid, comes only after I've told you the entire not assembly line, that's not the right word. And slopey the graph. Until I've showed you the entire graph of Kedusha ending all the way to tippity top, I can't give you the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem. I can't tell you the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem in the middle of talking to the Jews about being holy, because talking to the regular Jews about being holy does not include the Kohen Gadol. So when I'm finished with all the inanimate objects, and then I'm finished with all the animals, and then I'm finished with all the people in Yisrael, and then I'm finished with the Kohen, and then I'm finished with the Kohen Gadol, and then I'm finished with time, now I will tell you the issue of Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem. Only at that point. Once I finish with that, by the way, just tangentially, do you understand this answers, I believe, what is one of the hardest questions, one of the most impossibly difficult questions in last week's Parshas. As we said, the end of the Parshas is Oven Yidoni. You're like, goodness gracious, what the heck does Baal Oven Yidoni tell me in the bit? If the Parsha recaps, the list of how Jews should be holy, and then it says, and by the way, if there's a Baal over Yidoni, kill him. And Rashi says, oh, well, I know I told you that before, but before it was that God would kill him, and now it's that the Jews have to kill him. It's telling you that there are different reasons why a person who practices necromancy would die. The first is God has an issue with him. That's a personal and evolutionary problem. That's Parshas Achremos. Parshas Kedoshim is now that the Jews live on a societal level with such holiness and such perfection and such singular alignment. Now they have an obligation to root out that sort of evil too. But that only becomes an issue once the entire society is kadosh. So after I've told you the laws of Kiddushim, and after I've recapped all the laws of Kiddusha and told you how you as a society with all of the Yisrael composite parts are going to be holy, now there's a din of Misas Bezdin on a Balovim Yidoni. That's what Rashi's saying. That's exactly what Rashi is saying. And of course, those of you who remember that last Friday, if you were listening live last Friday, and I'm sorry I was a little bit upset at the time, last Friday, we said that why would the Torah tell you, oh man, this is so good. This is so good. We said, why would the Torah tell you the laws of forbidden sexual relationships in Achremos, and then immediately again in Kedoshim? Like immediately, you didn't even have time to forget. It gave you a little list, right? It's like mathematics, you can't marry. And by the way, most of those people, to be honest, you weren't into anyway. But whatever. First, it tells you all of them in Achremos, and again in Kedoshim. It repeats it again. It's hard to understand that. And then it does it in a different order. It's hard to understand why it does that also. Here's a pshat. We said in Parshas Achremos, the language is different. The language in Parshas Achremos is singular. The language in Parshas Kedoshim is plural. Because in Parshas Achremos, we're talking about, again, evolution. We're talking about you, the individual, the human, the person, the kid, the guy that grew out of a speck of dust. There is an issue on a personal level with a person committing these relationship restrictions. And these relationships restrictions are generally 98% based on what? Evolutionary biology. It's all about she'ero. It's all about they literally grew off of your branch of the family tree. You're not allowed to reproduce with the same genes. So all of the Isurei Arayos are genetic. A person's father, a person's mother, a person's sister, a person's daughter, a person's daughter. Genetic. And therefore the order is going outwards from the person and his genetic material. So for people that I share more DNA markers with, less DNA markers with, further out, and it goes out and out and out in concentric circles. Whereas in Parshas Kedoshim, it's not a personal human biped issue. It's a Judaism, holiness, society issue. So now you also have a problem that society has to kill adulterers and society has to kill people who sleep with their sister. It's a different issue. So it's plural because it's talking to you, the people. And the order is different because it's talking about societal issues, not personal evolutionary issues in Parshas Kedoshim. And then when Parshas Kedoshim ends, it ends with Balo V'Yidoni. Now that the Jews have attained the level of Kedusha, now you have an issue with Balo V'Yidoni. I'm not prepared to talk about why that is specifically Balo V'Yidoni and nothing else, but that's why it only comes afterwards. Now that I've told you that, I'll tell you about the next level of Kedusha, as we said, which is the Kohen, and going all the way, culminating in the Kohen Gadol, culminating even more with the Kedusha of Zman, culminating ultimately with the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem itself. Followed by what? I love housekeeping. Followed by the Moedim. And we said, I don't understand. Why would you introduce the Moedim twice? I'll read it again just in case you don't remember. Right? Okay. So sorry. Let me read it inside. Speak to the Jews and tell them. The times of Hashem that you will call them holy, these are my times. For 6 days you'll work, and the seventh day is Shabbos. It's called holy, all the work you won't do. Shabbos it is for Hashem in all your places. These are the times of Hashem that you'll call holy, that you'll call in their times. It's like 2 and 4 are the same. And we said before, why are you pulling out Shabbos? Why Shabbos? Shabbos isn't a moed. Let's deal with the second question first, because I think that's the right way to structurally deal with it. I mean, it would work. It's a circle, but this might be easier. The reason that you're introducing Shabbos before you talk about the Moadim is because the Moadim are nothing more than a cut and paste of Shabbos. There is no such thing as Kiddushat Hazman, holiness in time, that does not grow out of the concept of Shabbos. There's no such thing. That's why you might notice also that the pattern of all of the Moadim is a pattern of 7, because Shabbos is 7, and then immediately on Pesach, you're going to start counting 7 sevens, and then after that, you're going to have Rosh Hashanah is in the 7th month. It's all 7 sevens. And how long is Pesach? And how long is Sukkot? 7 days, right? It's all just Shabbos. So I have to tell you about Shabbos. Here's the thing, though. You can't talk about Shabbos and the holidays in the same breath. They have to be separated. Why do they have to be separated? Because Shabbos has nothing to do with you. And the Moedim, the holidays, have everything to do with you. What do I mean by that? I mean that whether or not you celebrate Shabbos, it's Shabbos. Whether or not you know it's Shabbos, it's Shabbos. Whether or not you declare it's Shabbos, and Shabbos doesn't move for any man. You never cancel Shabbos. However, when Pesach falls out, that's going to be a function of rabbis, isn't it? Because they have to declare the month. If you don't declare the new month, you don't have a new month. The calendar is created by the Jews. The Jews are the ones who create the Kedushas Hazman. Famously, as the Gemara explains, this is why, for those of you who are familiar with the liturgy on Shabbos, as opposed to the liturgy on a festival, doesn't matter what festival it is. It could be Rosh Hashanah, it could be Pesach, it could be Shavuos, doesn't matter. On Shabbos, we say, Baruch Ata Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos. Blessed are you, Hashem, who makes Shabbos holy. During the Moedim, we say, let's say it's Shabbat, we say Mekadesh Yisrael v'Hazmanim. God, thank you for being Mekadesh. You sanctified Israel, Yisrael v'Hazmanim many times. Meaning, as the Torah says, Mekadesh Yisrael shemekadesh et Hazmanim. God, you sanctify the Jews, and they sanctify the times. Well, what happens if a holiday falls out on Shabbos? How do you say it then? Let's say Pesach falls out on Shabbos. You say, Baruch Ata Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos v'Yisrael v'Hazmanim. Shabbos comes before Yisrael. Why? Because God sanctified Shabbos, God sanctified Yisrael, Yisrael sanctified the Zmanim. That's why. And you see that perfectly and beautifully if you look at the pasuk. Because the first pasuk, which is 2, if you just look at it, it's Chaf Gimel Beis, it says, say to them as follows. These are the times of God that you will call Asher Tikru Osam Mikrai Kodesh. You will call them callings of holy. Then it says, Shabbos. For 6 days work will be done. On the 7th day, Shabbos Shabboson Mikra Kodesh. Shabbos Shabboson, a Shabbos it is, Mikra Kodesh. It's called holy. Not you call it holy. Mikra Kodesh. It's called holy. Shabbos is holy, regardless of how you call it. But now look at the next verse, which is about to launch all of the holidays that you and I make. These are the holidays of Hashem, which are called holy, Asher Tikru'u Osam b'moatam, that you will call them in their times. The Jews have to be Mekadesh the Moadim. So, of course, that Kedusha only stems from Shabbos. We could talk about this a lot more, and we should. The Kedusha really is only an outgrowth of what Shabbos already is, but you have to declare it. It comes from you. The Moadim don't come from Hashem. They come from you. Shabbos comes from Hashem. The Moadim come from the Jews. Well. Listen to this. Here's why I think it's actually very exciting. It's very exciting because if we're right, then this answers a big problem that I think many people have and are going to have this week. He said immediately after the Moadim, we give you the commandment again of taking oil for the lamp and flour for the table. It's like, sheesh, man, I know that. We've been to that movie before. Perhaps what is happening, now that we have finished explaining all of the levels of Kedusha and Tahara as they pertain across the board on the entire spectrum, from the lowest of the low, from rocks to bugs, animals, people, Jews, Kohen Gadol, time, God. Now you can make holiness in time. Now that you've made holiness in time, you're going to take earth and make it holy. Take shemen zayis zach and take solet. Now that the Jews have become holy as a people, take the oil. Yes, it's true you needed oil as an ingredient list. On the ingredient list in Parshas Truma, it says oil, also gold and silver and copper and tchelis and all sorts of dyes. And then in Parshas Tetzaveh, it tells you about the operation of the Mishkan. And it tells you that the Kohen Gadol is going to take oil, and this is what he's going to do with it. That's first one was ingredients. Second was direction. This mention, this isn't about ingredients, and this isn't about the instructions. This is about the relationship. Now the Jews as a people can actually give oil, which will be holy. They can take something which was nothing and from it make something holy, which of course is the idea of the Shemen Zayisach. It's the first squeeze. This is why famously we talk about wine, bread, and oil as being things that we take from the ground and we improve. You take an olive is gishmak, but it's not the greatest. When you take an apple's gishmak, you squeeze it, you make apple juice. Apple juice isn't better than apples. Olive oil is better than olives. Wine is better than grapes. Bread is better than stalks. It's an elevation. So we bring now the menorah and the shulchan. Again, the Jewish people will come and take and they will give to you. This will be the bringing close and the elevation of the earth. That's why you have a reiteration only after the issues of Kedusha, all the way across from beginning to end. Now, the Parsha ends with something that's just inexplicable. The Parsha ends with the Makalel. The cursor, the guy curses God. What the heck, and why does he curse it? Well, he cursed it because his father wasn't Jewish, but his mother was Jewish, so he tried to live in his mother's town, in his mother's village, and his stepdad kicked him out because he says, you don't belong here, your father's an Egyptian. Strange. It's very strange. You know why this is happening now? Only after we finish telling you about the holiness of the camp, of the machane, and how everybody is going to interrelate in their particular, in their placement in the camp. Now the first thing that has to go is this guy. So we've been talking about this since Parshas Tazria. If a person gets saras, he has to leave the camp. The camp isn't holy, not holy, that's not the right word, open to everybody. Not everybody can be in the camp. People who are tahor can be in the camp, or it depends what kind of tahor. And these people can be here in Machane Yisrael, but they can't be in Machane Levaya. They can't be in the Machane where the Leviim live, because I'm not a Levi. I can't go to Machane Levaya. And a person who's a Levi can't go to Machane Shechina. He can't live in the temple. Can't live in the Beis Hamikdash. He can't go there. The Levi can't go there. The Kohen can't go there. The Kohen Gadol can't go there. Only on this day. It's the same idea. It's where you go. So now that I've finished the totality of telling you where everyone is going to go and how everyone is going to have to act, now not only the temple is activated, but the machane, the camp, the nation is activated. And the second that the nation is activated, this guy has to go. And what does he start complaining about? It's not fair. So what if my father's Egyptian? My mother's Jewish. I should be here in Machane done. Yeah, that wasn't an issue until right now. It's not fair that I'm not a Kohen. I, Shlomo Sprung, would like to duchen. It's so nice. First of all, I'd love to get away with wearing my socks in shul. Second of all, everybody gives you shkoyach afterwards, right? You say a few words. It was, oh, I love you, shkoyach kohen, shkoyach kohen, shkoyach kohen. Right? I want to be a Kohen too. Tough luck, Sprung. You can't be a Kohen. What do you mean? But I'm nicer than some of the Kohens that I know, and I'm taller than some of the Kohens that I know. And so what? You're not Kohen. You're not Kohen. Go back where you belong. That's you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're wonderful. You belong there. Nothing wrong with Tuma. You belong there. Nothing wrong with Levaya. You belong there. There's nothing wrong with Gerus. You belong here. You can't say now that you belong there. You don't belong there. You don't belong there. Your father's Behu ben Ish Mitzri. He's the son of an Egyptian man. What do you mean? You are who you are. This whole issue has been about Havdalah, about separation, not because better or worse. Different. Sui generis. Specificity. Harmony. Harmony isn't just noise. Oh, we're going to have great harmony. I'm going to have 100 people in a room that are all going to scream at the top of their lungs. That's not harmony. That's a din. Harmony is very distinct, perfect sounds, each one on its own, coming together to make something beautiful. That's what harmony is. This is where you belong. You're the flautist. These are your notes. These are your notes. That's why the Makala comes down. Now, I'd like to give you just one more thing with this element. I don't think that it would be fair to ignore the connection between Mekalel and Machalel. Oh, I wanted to give you some gender roles too. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave you off with that question. I'm just gonna say the Parsha talks about a lot of Mechalel, a lot of to make profane or to make mundane, and the Parsha ends with Mekalel, the cursor. What's the connection and what's the difference between Chilul and Kalel? Mechalel and Mekalel. What's the difference? What's the connection? What's the difference? I want you guys can think about that. I want to give you one more because it's so good. So the end of this Parshas tells us that if someone is, God forbid, Mekal Hashem, if he curses Hashem, then we stone him to death, right? We kill him. And the word for curse is no cave. No cave, right? No cave. Now, obviously, the word for curse is no cave because everybody knows that a female is a nikeva, and females are cursed, right? Huh? Why is the same word for female the word for curse? Let that one sink in. No cave. Nikeva. You're going to love this. I'm going to give you a gift. You could take this one to the bank, okay? The word no cave means not merely to curse and not merely female. The word means at its core, it means to pierce. To pierce. Well, that makes perfect sense. You say, oh, well, obviously, a girl is nekeva because what makes her a girl is a piercing. I don't mean piercing the ears, right? But meaning what makes a man goes outward. What makes a woman goes inward. So she is nakuv. She is pierced, so to speak. She is known by, right? You have screws and bolts, maybe, right? Or when one thing goes to the other, they call it zachar nekeva, right? The one that juts out and goes in is called the zachar, and the one that accepts and has a hole and is pierced is nekeva. Very biological. And remember, everything here is biological, okay? The Torah is so freaking biological. Oh my God. Okay. Why? And why would that be the word for curse too? To pierce and female. I don't think that the reason that a female is called pierced is merely a description of genitalia. That's not the issue. Do you know the differences between a boy and a girl? It's crazy. I say, oh yeah, because I was in kindergarten too. So listen to this. Listen to this. You know, men don't understand women at all. We don't get them. This truth has fueled so many movies and novels and jokes. Everybody knows this. We don't understand you, but we understand men. We understand men really well. How come we don't understand women? And not only that, how come men who are otherwise like so intelligent don't understand any of the women that they know? It's not an accident. Listen to why. This is what I think. Maybe I'm crazy. I've never said this out loud before. I had the thought the other day. Check this out. The reason that men don't understand women is because women are totally specific. Totally specific. They're all different. Do you know why men understand men? All the same. All the same. That's the difference between Zachar and Nekeva. That's the difference. Do you know what Zachar means? I said it means male. It also means to remember. To remember, which means to bring out. I don't want to go into that too deeply right now because it's too long, but to bring out something that's already there. Men have the same ideas. They go after the same stuff. They're looking for these same exact things. All the same. Yeah, there's 4 different men, and you know all 4, but everyone is just some kind of composite of those 4. Women are incredibly specific. They are inwardly focused. They are epically specific. Each female is a totally different spice ingredient list. Totally different. They are nakuv, pierced, specific. Do you know why the word nakuv means specific? It only comes up twice in the Torah. The first is by cursing, vayikov. The word vayikov comes up twice here, and vayikov chor b'dalto. He pierced a hole in the door. That's the only other example in the entirety of Tanakh. Do you know what happens when you pierce a hole in the door? You know exactly where the hole is. You look at the door, you see exactly where the hole is. It's a point, quite literally. It's a point that differentiates it from everywhere else. When else does it say the word nakuv? Chosen. Asher nakvu b'shemot. The men who were chosen as spies were pierced. You pierced them with names. Asher nakvu b'shemot. They were pierced with names. It means they were specified. They were called out specifically. We'll talk about this more in Parshas. They were the people who were chosen to be spies were chosen specifically. They weren't appointed. I need someone tall. You're tall. You, and you come here. It means that it was incredibly specific. The difference between a man and a woman is specificity. Generality versus specificity. Zachar, to bring out that which has always been latent, and nekeva, pierced, stands out on its own, easily identifiable, specific. When you curse God, when a person curses God, Gemara says it has to be Yaki Yosi Es Yosi. There's a very, very specific way it has to be done. Why? You can't just say, screw you, God. Nope. Mm-mm. No. Without going too deeply into it, I'll tell you what I think it means, at least on the surface, what it means. The person who's cursing God has to know exactly how God's pattern is manifesting in the world. Takes a snapshot of that moment and says, this moment right here is rotten. This thing right here. He's very specific. He pulls it out. Now, if you don't believe me, if you think I'm crazy, or if you don't understand this thought, who is the king of curses? Who is the man who curses better than anyone else? Bilam. Ma'akov lo kaboel. Bilam. What does Bilam know how to do? He knows how to get specific. He knows how to pull out one snapshot and talk only about this. That's the idea of nekeva. That, I believe, is why it's kabo. That's the relationship between the gender and which shows you that what this means is that it's not just the word zachar and nekeva, and it's not just the fact that what makes males and females different physically and biologically happens to manifest those ideas, but it's much more deeper than that. The patterns themselves are geared towards, and of course there are exceptions to every rule. That's not the point, because not the point. The point is that the female is designed to be specific. The male is designed to be global. So the female, right? If you look at the gender roles in terms of Judaism, family and nurturing and concentration, things like that, it just starts to make a heck of a lot of sense. Ladies and gentlemen, have a beautiful, beautiful, incredible Shabbos. As we said for the Shloshim, all this year we're going to be Le'ilui Nishmas, Shalom Dov Ber Ben Yosef, and Hashem should have an Aliyah, and have an incredible, incredible Shabbos. Think about Makala and Machala. There's a lot to say about that. That's really cool. Much love.